What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Alpha and Omega Exponent, also known as AOE, where we share content to add value to your life. My name is Parfait, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, you like this video, you share it with someone to add value to their life. I am back with another story time episode, but before we get started, make sure you go back and you watch the previous story times in order to catch up with what has been going on here. So without further ado, let's get started with the story time of today. And the story of today is the story of when God got tired and he got fed up about these two ancient cities, and he decided to destroy both of those cities because of what was happening in those cities. And over 2,000 years ago, there were two ancient cities of Syria in the plains of Jordan, and those two ancient cities' names were Sodom and Gomorrah. And in those two cities, the people there were practicing all kinds of immorality that you can think of, from sexual immorality, from behavior immorality. And God got fed up with these people, and he decided to send two of his angels in order to destroy everybody and to destroy the whole city. The whole city, Sodom and Gomorrah, both of those cities. And as those two angels approach the gate, the square of those cities, there was a man there whose name was Lot. And Lot, if you remember from the previous stories, Lot was Abraham's nephew, and they were separated. Lot went his way, and Abraham and his house also went the other way. And Lot found himself in this city of Sodom. And as he saw those two men, Lot decided to invite those two men in his house so that he can serve them. And those men were like, nah, we don't want to come in your house. We have an assignment that we have to get to. But Lot insisted for those two men to come in his house. So they accepted his invitation. They came in his house and he served them. And as he was serving them, and after they were done, the people of the cities, these immoral people, they came to Lot's house asking for those two men so that they can basically act wrong against them. And Lot went outside and told the people of the city. They were like, nah, I'm not gonna let y'all do this because these two men, they are my responsibility. I can't let y'all act any type of way to them. And they were like, nah, we still want them. You got to bring them out. And as this was happening, those angels took Lot and brought Lot in the house. And when those men stepped out, all the people that came to basically take those men, they were hit with blindness. So they became blind, all of those people. And those two angels told Lot and his family, they told him to leave the city. And because why? Because they were going to destroy the city based on the assignment that God gave them. And they told him, after the night, they woke up in the morning, they told him, Lot, take your family, take your wife, take your children, and anybody that you want to save, leave the city. And they gave him some very important instructions. The instructions were, as you're escaping the city, make sure you do not look back as you're escaping. And when you're in the hills, when you're in the valley, do not look back. When you're in the valley, do not look back, and you have to escape to the hills. And Lot woke up in the morning, took his wife, took his two daughters, and they left. And as soon as they left the city, God brought fire down and burned both of those cities down. And as they were escaping in the valley, Lot's wife couldn't, hold herself and decided to look back to see what was happening to the city as it was getting destroyed. And as she looked back, she became a pillar of salt. And Lot and his two daughters did not look back. They kept on walking all the way until they got to the hills. And as they got to the hills, they basically decided to settle there after all this thing happened. And they were afraid to go back to live in the city, so they decided to live in the hills and in the caves. And because of the fear of what they just went through, they decided to stay in those caves, to never go back in the city. And since they were living in those caves, Lot and his two daughters, some interesting things happened. Now, as they were living in these caves, Lot's two daughters, the firstborn, came and told her sister. She was like, well, we live in these caves, and there's basically going to be no man who's going to come to marry us here. So we got to find a way to preserve the life and to preserve basically, the seed of our father. And so the firstborn gave the idea of them to basically get their father drunk so they can lay with him in order for them to become pregnant, so they can preserve the life and the generation of their father. And out of all of these things, and it took place. So one day, these two daughters, they got their father Lot drunk, and one day the first daughter lay with their father, and then the next day they repeated the same thing. The other daughter lay with their father when he was drunk, and they both became pregnant, and they gave birth to two children. And these things happened, and there are some important lessons that we can take away from this story. The first lesson is basically a question that we need to ask ourselves, is that, how do we recognize angels of God when they're walking? We need to be able to recognize angels of God when they're walking, so that we can have the opportunity to be saved whenever God has an assignment on earth. And the second lesson, and these are very important lessons to take away, is that when we're escaping, there's going to be two places that we're going to find ourselves. The first place is going to be a valley, and the second place is going to be a hill or a mountain. And when we're escaping in the valley, we have to know that there is nothing good to look back on, and there's no reason to stop in the valley. As these angels gave the instruction to Lot and his family when they were escaping, they told them to not look back and to not stop in the valley. And we have to know that in the valley, that is the place where we need to actually be making progress. And in our daily life, we can compare this to all the circumstances that happen in our life. When we're first trying to escape something evil or a bad situation, or we just trying to get over an addiction or a bad relationship or a bad behavior, the first place we find ourselves is the valley. And in that valley, we will be tempted to look back. In that valley, we will be tempted to stop. But we need to know that that is the place that we need to make progress, because there's nothing good to look back on, and there's no reason for us to stop. And in the valley, that is the place where we are most vulnerable to temptation, and the temptation is going to come to stop our progress. And we need to know that when we look back, we are basically opening ourselves, with the opportunity to get stuck. And so we should not stop in the valley. We should not look back in the valley. When you're trying to escape something bad or something, a situation that you've experienced, you need to know that when you're in this valley, you need to be making progress. You do not look back, and you keep moving forward. And we need to escape to the hill, and the hill is the mountain, because in the mountain, that's where we can stand strong. In the mountain, that's where we can have the strength to basically look and to basically reflect on what had happened. And that is where we are also safe. And that is where also the enemy cannot reach us, because from that is the place where we have developed the strength, where we are covered, and where we are protected. And then we also need to now to ask ourselves the questions of, what is a bad situation or a bad environment or a bad circumstance that we're currently trying to escape from, and have we started our escape? And if we did start our escape, are we in the valley or are we in the hill or in the mountain? If you're in the valley, keep making progress. Do not look back until you get to the mountain. And the last lesson is that after we achieve our escape, we need to know that we cannot live in fear. As we heard in the story, that those two daughters of Lot, because of the fear that they have to preserve life, they decided to do something that was very bad by basically laying with their father. And all of these took place because they had fear. They were fearing because of the bad experiences that they had. We cannot live in fear after we've escaped from a bad circumstance, after we've escaped destruction. We need to know that we need to live in strength and power so that we can continue to do what's right. Because if we live in fear after escape, then we're more likely to repeat the same mistakes, or to repeat or to act out of desperation, or to do the wrong thing because of fear. So do not let your fear control your future actions, but you need to know that you can develop the strength and you can develop the fortitude to be able to move forward once you live in the hill. So that's it for the story time of today. I hope that it added value to your life. I'll see you in the next story time.